Okay, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartery here today with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today, joined by a very special guest, Chauncey Foxworth, the Machine, professional MMA fighter, doing some great things in his career as well. He's had at least 24 fights so far, maybe more, you know how records go. Today, we're going to be talking about this man's life, his career, really the mental mindset and the discipline that it takes to reach a very high level in anything in life, but especially in one of the toughest sports in the world, MMA. So, as always with myself, it's not just a sports interview, but there'll be some great golden nuggets of inspiration and wisdom as well. So, with all of that being said, Champ, once again, thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It really is a pleasure. I've been excited about this one for a while. So it is great to have you. And you know, your morning, my afternoon, time zones are pretty cool as well. So let's get into it from the beginning. Let's go back to your early years and your upbringing, you know, where you come from. I don't always start at the beginning with these interviews, but today I think we'll walk through it from day one, pretty much. So can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and early life, please?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm 31. I just turned 31. I was born and raised, and I still live here in Arkansas, U.S. In the U.S. Hot Springs, Arkansas. Um, it's a beautiful place. Not the biggest city or anything like that. But it's home. I love it. It's where my family is. It's where I've learned everything. Good and bad. That's where I've learned everything. Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's where I'm from.
Amazing, amazing. So obviously, that's the beginning of your life and your early years. Now, when it comes to starting martial arts and starting to have an interest in fighting and combat and you know wanting to be the best in that, what first lit the fire inside of you, if you like, the passion to start training in martial arts? Where did that begin for you?
Well, first, before that, I was in football, and I always had that dream, like a lot of young kids had the dream of going to the NFL, making millions of dollars, for yourself, for your family, all that good stuff. And I went to college and all that, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Broke my heart. Yeah, but I knew deep down inside, not knocking anyone about how their career is, but I knew for a fact that a 9 to 5 just doesn't work for me. I like being in control of my own thing. I just like that. They call it the American dream. A lot of people call it, chasing that dream. And so I just, MMA, it was just always, I watched it one day. I remember the fight specifically. I was at Buffalo Wild Wings and I watched the fight. I believe it was, who was it? It was Frank Mir going against Nogueira, one of the Nogueira brothers. And he had him, I believe, in a Kimura. He didn't tap. And he had him like when he wouldn't tap and popped it. And I was like, dang. And most people was like, ugh. And I was like, I want to do this. I could do this. And I just from there I jumped right into it, and I had the mindset that I was gonna be the best at it from day one. I didn't go in it just to like try it out. Oh, let me see if I like this. No, I already had my mind made up. This has to work. There's no other option. So
That's an
here we
amazing
are now.
story, and it's incredible story. So right then and there, that was the moment when you thought, okay, I want to do that. That's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Um, touch on the football a little bit before we go back into the MMA because I didn't know that. So you know, this is something just to wing it and find out a little bit more about. But how long were you playing football? You know, before like the injury or whatever happened. Uh,
Now I played. I started in seventh grade, in middle school, and seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, all through high school. I was pretty good, and I went to college. It was Division II, so right there it was like I wanted to go Division I. I felt like I was good enough, just didn't have the right connections and all that. But I wasn't injured or anything. It was credits and just a bit. I didn't realize at that time, and I realize that now going into MMA. So I'm kind of glad it happened, but I realized that it's a business. It's not. It's not all. You might love it, you may enjoy it, but at the end of the day, remember, this is a business. They So that in football, they look at the statistics: who's the fastest, who's the strongest, who's the biggest, and even in fighting, the same thing. I've never been the biggest, strongest, tallest, fastest. I've never been any of that, but my heart. I've always had that heart, and I feel like I could have went to the NFL with that heart and my work ethic. I feel like I could have made it. So I translate that now to MMA, and that's how I've gotten as far as I can, and why I'm gonna go as far as I know I can. But yeah, football was my first love. I loved it. I loved, breathed, and slept football. But I'm glad that that didn't work out because I love MMA. I love what I do now.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's a valuable life lesson, for people, that if something doesn't go your way, sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise,
Yeah,
God works in mysterious ways and all that stuff. These things work out as they should. It doesn't always seem like it at the time, though, but when you
right.
look, you can think, oh, actually, that makes sense why that happened. So it's a valuable life lesson, not just for sports, but for anything people out there are doing. So good. Okay. So jumping back into the MMA, obviously you started training. You wanted to be the best from the beginning. Um, what was it like initially in training, though? I mean, was it difficult for you to adapt to? Did you take to it easily? What was the just that initial process when you first jumped into it, basically?
I smell like I'm just thinking about it. Man, it was difficult. It was hard. I remember every practice I threw up at the end of training. It was hard. It was just like it's hard because when football, me coming from football, it's now said hut about 10, 12 seconds, then the play is over. Then you get to breathe. No, you going 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Like, dang, you don't get no rest. It was tough. And just, being put in a choke, I know that was my first amateur fight. I lost to a rear naked choke. The guy put me about three of them. And the only way I knew how to do is punch out of it, punch my way out. And then that fourth one, I'm choking on my mouthpiece. Oh, so it was, it was hard, and it's still hard. I think that's why I enjoy it so much. It's a challenge. I love a challenge. I don't want it to be easy.
Absolutely. And obviously, you had the whole football background and then MMA. So, how old were you then when you started actually training in MMA in itself? Because it had to be like a little bit later than, say,
Yeah,
most people.
I've been doing MMA for 10 years. I've been training for 10 years. It was in August. I'm 31. That's so 21, I believe, was when I started.
That's very cool as well. Because again, it's a life lesson for people that like starting a little bit later. I mean, it's not super late, but it is later than some guys. You can still achieve great things as well because age is just a number. That's the thing with this interview as well, is I don't ever dwell on anything negative. Even if there's things that are difficult, it's all about getting the lesson out of it that people
Right.
can learn for, to flip it into something positive and what have you. So, okay, brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about your amateur career itself. And you mentioned obviously that first fight was not so good, with the choke and everything like that. But you got into your stride a little bit. I think you won a couple as well. So just continue on that line of like the transition of obviously first fight was a struggle. You bounced back, you got the hang of it. What was going through your mind in that process? How did you flip that on its head to be something positive? Just anything else you'd like to share about that time in your life and those very early fights, basically.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I lost my first one. Then my second one, I lost that one. I got knocked out with a head kick. I was beating the guy up, and just out of frustration, I got mad because he wouldn't. I'm like, I'm hitting this dude, but he's not going out. Head kick, went to sleep. So I'm 0-2 at this point, and then at one point I was 1-3, and it was extremely hard, and I had to I questioned myself like, Chauncey, what are you doing? But I mean, but I just stayed with it. I trusted in my coach. My two coaches I still have now, Dewan Pickney and Coach Bob Edmonds. I still got them now, and they said, Chauncey, just keep following the process. It's gonna come. You're gonna hit your stride. Just keep going, keep working. Don't stop a thing. And that's what I did. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang. I remember my first win. I don't remember I remember how I won TKO, but I don't remember us touching. But I don't remember anything after that. I mean, before that. But I just kept fighting, and learned along the way. Yeah, and eventually it just clicked, like they said, a light bulb just switched on. Okay, this is what I do. This is what I do. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. I mean, it's very inspirational right then and there, pushing through those early hardships to get the win. It must have been a very sweet feeling.
Mhm.
The other thing I want to ask you about, you mentioned about like, your hometown and where you're from and being proud of that and everything. Talk to us a little bit about like what the MMA community is like in your area, because I want to give this a mention, um, because I honestly don't know. I mean, I've interviewed people in at least, I don't know, 25 states in the USA or something like that, maybe more. I don't know. I've lost track. But like with Arkansas itself, I mean, I don't know a lot about what the MMA community like, what the talent pool is like, if it's a
Mhm.
popular sport there, to be quite honest. So I'd love to obviously know more about that and for everyone listening as well. So what was the what was the environment like with MMA in your home area?
In the beginning, not so big, which I think it was a lot everywhere. It wasn't that big. A lot of people looked at MMA like a barbarian sport, things like that. But now it's starting to become popular everywhere. And Arkansas is no different. We have a lot of gyms in Arkansas. Um, one of the biggest names right now, as you probably know him, Bryce Mitchell. He's one of the bigger names in the UFC in Arkansas, and he's in the UFC right now. We got a lot of guys in Bellator, and I'm one of those guys that's right there on the cusp of going to one of those big leagues, UFC, Bellator, whatever. But it's a big community now in Arkansas. MMA is. And speaking of gyms, like my gym is one of the top gyms here in Arkansas, and we push each other. And I got other teammates that are right there at the cusp of being on the UFC at Bellator. Like one of my teammates, Donovan Beard, he just fought the Bo Nickel guy in the Contender Series. He lost unfortunately, but that's y'all haven't seen the Donovan Beard that I've seen, so he'll be back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe you will as well. So let's talk about because obviously we're just walking through time here. You know, you had those amateur experiences, you started winning, and had some good wins as well. So then when it came time to basically go pro and take that leap, by this time you'd presumably transitioned into your stride, you'd hit your stride as your coach was saying, and you started winning. But going professional, it is still a big decision. And obviously I'm sort of going back here to what you said at the beginning. You wanted to be the best. You came into to take over, not just to take part type of thing. So I'm with you on that mindset. But when it came time to take the plunge, take the leap, whatever you want to call it, what was going through your mind at that time, and how did the decision come about when you sort of said, I'm ready to go professional?
Well, it was kind of a surprise. I had over 10 fights, amateur, I think 13 altogether, something like that. And it was getting harder and harder to find me fights later in my amateur career. It was so many backouts. I mean, between 3 fights, I think I had like 10 pullouts, people pulling out just last minute, can't fight, can't fight, can't fight. And I remember my last one that I was going to fight was a guy that I lost to as an amateur as it was for a title fight, and I lost by indecision. And we were going to end up fighting again, fights later. And he pulled out the fight. I'm like, man. And then my coach surprised me. Well, hey, you got to fight. We got a fight scheduled for you. I said, okay. Who's the guy? And he told me the guy and everything. He said, you're gonna get paid too. I'm like, huh? Yeah, you're professional now. And I almost cried right there, like, what? And I went crazy. I'm like, dang. So that's how it happened. And even though I talked to my coach before, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. This fight for free stuff. It is for the birds. But yeah, that's when I turned pro.
Okay, so it happened like that. That's very cool, because some of these things obviously you don't know just from looking at the
Yeah.
records and everything. Now this is the other thing I said about how many fights you've had as a professional, as an amateur and things. Now obviously with MMA, I don't know. I've seen a lot of them, but I don't know how many there are altogether, because when you look online, I don't know if all of your amateur fights are there, to be honest.
No, they're
Um,
not.
no, I think more of your pro fights are there. But if we're
Yeah.
missing any, just fill in the blanks for me. But same type of question, really, as obviously your amateur side of things. When you first turned pro, exactly the same thing. I mean, those early few fights, your mental and physical transition and process you went through. Just anything you'd like to share about the start of the journey in the paid ranks, basically.
It was fun. I remember when I was 2-0. Then my first big fight was when I fought Jaleel Willis, and he's in Bellator right now. and I fought him. It was on, I believe now it is PFC. It's PFL now, I believe. But at that time, it was a World Series of Fighting. That was my big first fight. He was like a real big name guy. You know, Jalil, he was knocking everybody out in the first round. Never even went to the second round, you know. So I was kind of like stage struck almost. The lights were big. But, you know, I performed. I went out there and I fought hard. You know, blood was everywhere. And you know, that opened my eyes that Chauncey, you could be on this level. You know, you could be here. You just got to fix a little few things, just little small things. You just got to fix them. You know, and yeah, that's and then after that, you know, I had fights, and I've had a lot of big fights. You know, I've had a lot of fights where I'm under those big lights. So I've even fought in Bellator once. You know, and one thing I brag about when it comes to my career is that I very rarely have I fought guys that are scrubs. You know, a lot of guys, like you look like I had a lot of guys records at 18-0 and 24-2. You know, them beautiful records that they have. But then you go back and look at the guys they fought: 2-19, 3-8. 0-100, you know, it just, you know, the fans and people don't care about that. All they see is a record. But people that are really into MMA and fighters themselves, we know. And so when those big fights come up now, when I'm fighting a big guy, it's just another guy to me. Or under a big promotion with the lights are big, like, okay, it's just another fight. I've been there. You know, I fought the best of the best. Some of the guys I fought are in Bellator champions or in the UFC right now. You know, so I'm glad, even though some fights I lost, but of course I won more, and you know, and it's made me better every time, and it's a blessing. So I don't take anything back. The losses, I wouldn't erase them for nothing in the world. I enjoy this journey, and I'm looking forward to what's next. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an amazing answer, really. Because funny enough, I was going to ask you about that, like the highs and the lows, and how you bounce back. Because obviously, as we've mentioned, there's some big wins in there, but there's also been a few tough losses. But you've always bounced back, and you've always fought the best. So you pretty much summed up like a few questions in one there, which is really cool. But no, it's cool. I mean, it's brilliant. And yeah, when you look at your record, you can see the top guys as well. Anyone out there who doesn't know that, it's all there in black and white, as they say online. So brilliant. Okay. So talking about that, you obviously have some moments that you're very proud of that you've mentioned there as well. And I'd like to touch on this because proudest moments is always an interesting question, because it's a very big question, mine, but it's also a very interesting question because usually you don't get the answer that you expect coming back from that when I ask different champions this. So as you just mentioned, you fought some of the best guys. Are there certain fights that are your favorites that you're most proud of more than others? Maybe one, maybe more than one. Please share with us your thoughts on that.
I have two that stand out more than all the others. Well, three actually, but won't go through all of them. But the first one is what's the guy name? Joe Del Bruge is his name. I was gonna again, I'm from Arkansas, and after we got a call from Shogun Fights. This is in Baltimore, Maryland. And they contacted us to fight this one guy. And like the week of, they changed the opponent and didn't say anything. And the opponent's a lot tougher. And it was actually for a title fight and everything. This other fight before was just a normal fight, 3-round fight. And this one was a 5-round fight. And it was like, and I told my coach, he was like, man, I can't believe they changed the last minute. I said, that's fine. Let's keep it. Let's keep the fight. He's like, what? You want to keep? I said, let's keep it. I trusted myself. You trusted me. Let's do it. So we went to Baltimore, beat the guy, you know, came back with a belt, big heavy belt. I was like, oh, you know, so that was cool. You know, the second fight, I would say, was Jonathan Petty. Jonathan Petty. We're good friends now. We keep in contact from time to time. He was we fought on AKA, and it was a tough fight. And very rarely, like I have that mindset when I step in the cage, I'm willing to die. You have to kill me to beat me type. I have that mindset, you know, and it's gotten me far. And that was like that's the first guy I can honestly say that he didn't have to say it, that he had that same mindset. He was willing to, hey, lay it all out. Hey, you just gonna have to kill me. And you know, it was blood. It was a lot of sweat. It was like, we was both dead, but we kept fighting. You know, it was just a 3-round fight, but we pushed it to the limit. Like, man, you know, the crowd got their money's worth that night. And I appreciate him for that. I know that sounds weird to a lot of people. You appreciate him? I appreciate him. That was it's beautiful. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Something about when you in that cage, man. Even though you trying to hurt the other person, it's a beautiful. It's not a beautiful feeling to hurt nobody, but it's a beautiful feeling. Just the energy in it. I can't explain it. And if any fighter knows fighters know what I'm talking about. If you ain't been in the cage, it's kind of hard to understand and even harder for us to explain. And I guess the last one would be Braden Smith. I fought him twice, beat him twice, and I when the first fight I had with him, it did something to me because no one thought I was gonna win that fight. He was 8-1 at the time. Submitting people in the first round, this and that. And he loves to talk. And I love them kind of fighters that love to talk because that just likes to fire even more up under me. And I was determined. I said, I'm gonna hurt this guy. I'm gonna hurt him. He has no idea. And so we got in there. It's absolutely what I did. And it's not many fighters. I have respect for everybody that I fight, but if there's one guy I don't like that I fought, I still don't like him. I'll just be honest with you. I don't like Braden Smith. He don't like me either, so it's fun. It's mutual. But those 3 fights stand out more than any other ones in my career.
Wow, that is that's amazing, and amazing stories behind it as well. Because obviously you can watch the fights and everything, but getting your like the inside track on that is super cool, to be honest. To elaborate on that as well, do you have maybe some of these will come into it as well, but do you have like a favorite submission or a favorite knockout, like a two that you regard to be the best in your career technically, just to go a little bit deeper into what we touched on just now? Those are your proudest for maybe for different reasons, but to go a little deeper into that, any that stand out for like best KO and best sub type of thing in your own words?
I think my favorite finish was probably the TKO when I fought Braden Smith the first time because I had my goal the whole training camp. My goal was to make him quit. I want to make him quit. I don't want to just beat him. I don't want my hand raised in the decision. I want to make him quit. I want him to eat his own words. I want everybody to eat their own words. So we're going into the third round. The ref like, you ready? You ready? And I could see it on his face. Like he was ready to quit. I said, okay, I got him. Then I went out there and TKO'd him. Ref had to pull me off, and not I'm not one of those bragging people like, I beat you. I'm not, because I know how a loss feels, but it was very gratifying. I could have done that one for free because just, well, I got to get paid, but I could have done it for free. That's how motivated I was for that fight. And so that's my favorite finish, I would say.
Yeah, amazing. That's again, it's very cool to get the background on it because you don't get all of this from just watching the fight either. So
Yeah.
that is absolutely super cool, and it's good to highlight the fights in this way as well because you've had too many to sort of talk about them all individually or whatever. So that way, getting a few highlights from it is very good. I do have to ask though, obviously it says online about you having 20 odd fights. I think it's like 24, 25, something like that. Have you had that many? Is that accurate or is that more than that?
Yeah. 16-9. So see, 25 fights. Yeah.
Yeah,
16-9.
yeah, I thought it was 16-9. Just
Yeah.
it's like I always check because with MMA records, like it's not always like with your amateur fights, there's a lot missing, but with your
Yeah.
broadcast, I wasn't sure. But I've seen a lot of them anyway, but I was just making sure there was not too many more. So moving on from that a little bit, I think it's time to touch on like your training and some of what you do. But with this, it would be good to hear about like the mental and the physical aspect because the physical aspect is super important. Obviously, that's what the sport is, and you obviously train hard and everything it shows. But it'd be good to touch on the mental side because I feel that people often overlook that, where you have to have a very strong mind and a very strong sort of spirit inside of you as well to do what you're doing. It's not just all about the body. So can you talk us through like how you train regularly and what's going through your mind on the build up to a big fight as well, please?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm glad you said it because I was actually talking to with this about a teammate last night, talking about the mental part. It's physical. When people get in there, sweat, the muscles, the punching, the kicking, the getting tired, cardio, all that's important. But the mental, I would think, is even more important. You got to have a strong mind in here. I've seen guys that look chiseled, look like an action figure. I've seen guys that can the kicks and the punch. The technique is just beautiful, but their mind is, they're not mentally strong. I've seen guys break, and that's extremely important. And not only for just your opponent, but yourself as well. This is challenge. This is hard. Like I said earlier in my career about the losses I took, and even in my professional career, so close. Like literally, if I would have won one certain fight, I could have been in the UFC right now. I lost that fight, and I could have, I'm down, I'm hurt, I'm crying, it hurts, emotionally it hurts, but you got to pick yourself back up again. And the mental part, I believe, is the hardest part. To be a champion, to be a successful MMA fighter, I feel like you have to have a strong mind. You got to be mentally strong. You got to be. Got to be. And I feel like with me, that's of course I take rest at times from physical training, but I feel like the mental part, I never rest that. I might meditate, for but over a long period of time, I don't rest it. I'm working out that every single day, every day, and it's hard. It's extremely hard. But if you see some of the champions that have been champions for a long period of time, you'll see their mental attitude. And they have a strong mind. You got to. So, and as far as training goes, I try to kill myself. When I'm in there preparing, I prepare like it's the best in the world. Whoever I'm fighting, they're the best in the world. And if they're not, that's their fault. Sorry. But that's what I prepare for. That's what I prepare for every fight for. And that's like the fight I have coming up. I prepare for that as well, to be the fight the absolute best. And I want to have the best Chauncey Foxworth every time I walk up there in the cage. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's amazing to touch on that again. It's a sort of behind the scenes thing. Other fighters watching this, they'll know what goes on, but for other people on the outside looking in, it's a bit different. And yeah, the physical training absolutely essential. You've got to have that, cardio, strength, technique, everything. But the whole mindset thing is big. When I am around again doing like interviews or doing filming or photos or whatever it is around fights, and you're quite up close and personal with the media side of it, and you can see people come together for the face off and everything, and I can tell like who's going to win a lot of times, like at the weigh-ins or whatever. And not every time, I'm not saying that, but you have like a good, there's been a few upsets and things where I've predicted it, because you could just feel that the one guy's will
yeah.
is like pushing the other guy's will down. And again, it's very hard to put into words, but it's there, and it's like a tangible
Yeah.
feeling. And that's part of the reason I was so fascinated with that, because there's especially been a few times where there's been top champions and they come in to weigh in, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they're just not there that night, even if they've been a champion for a long time. I think, you know what, tonight, like his belt's going to go to the other guy, whatever. And you can just tell, and it's a crazy, crazy thing. And it's also important for life. A lot of things we're talking about today, they don't just apply to sports, they apply to, life as a whole,
Yeah.
which is very important. The other thing, while we're on these other subjects, sort of outside the cage in a way, obviously, you're a person of faith as well. And I put this in because I like to give that a mention, so am I, but I like to give that a mention with this, because reconciling, being a faithful person with being in a sport that's perceived to be violent. Like I said, when we were setting this up, I say that without judgment, because I know that MMA and think sports in general saves lives much more than it takes, So I do know how that works. But just for the purposes of people who might not be as familiar with that concept, how do you sort of reconcile the two, and how does your faith influence your life and influence your MMA career, basically?
Okay. I'll start off by saying this. I don't judge anyone on what they believe at all. Me, I'm not a religious person whatsoever. I'm extremely spiritual. And what I believe in God. I call him God because I don't have another word for him, higher power, whatever you call it. But I do believe in a higher power, and I pray and talk to him, to my higher power, to God every day, multiple times a day. They go hand in hand with this MMA thing for me. And for people that kind of question that will question, will you fight and hurt people? Why would you, how do you relate that to God? I would say, again, that's going to be hard for them to understand. A lot of fighters will know what I mean. But when you walk into that cage and you get in there, it's I feel closer to God than I ever have in my life. The only thing it's the best feeling. It's like I can feel, like you were talking about with the face off thing. It's a feeling. I just feel it. And it's I feel no closer to God than until when I walk into the cage. And God knows my heart. I know that he knows that it's not necessarily the person. The person is just happened to be the subject. But the main thing I'm trying to do, I'm chasing a dream. I'm trying to make a life better for myself, for my community, for my family. There's things bigger than this. So, like I said, I believe God knows my heart and what my result, what my destination is, what I'm trying to get to with this. I think it's gonna touch more lives than hurt. So,
Mhm.
and I know my heart, and I know where I'm coming from. So I don't, I know it's not from an evil intent. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I totally get where you're coming from. I'm the same. Spiritual is is the word for it, and it's a funny one being an interviewer as well, because I can totally get where you're coming from with that. And sometimes you have to ask questions where it's like, "Yeah, I think I know where this is going to go, but it's going to be a
yeah,
great answer." And it really is a great answer in a lot of ways with that, and how you reconcile the two, and how you're doing it with um, good intentions. I mean, intentions are everything. It's not what you do, it's what's behind it's what's inside the heart, really, and
right.
um, that's a very deceiving thing. And that really is a situation where, you can't judge any book by its cover. If you see supposedly upstanding people in the community who've been caught out eventually doing horrible things or whatever, and you see other people who people would probably walk past and say, oh, and pass some sort of judgment, and they're a really good person. And it's not a linear thing. So that was just to touch on that, because I think it's a valuable life lesson. Nothing is to pry into your personal life or anything like that, but it's a valuable lesson to share with people,
It is.
and sort of get the message out there to everyone who listens to this. On the subject of that, is one other question that again is definitely not to pry into anything personal by
No,
any means.
man, I'm an open book. You can ask whatever you want.
I know, but I still have that respect for
Yeah, which I
people.
appreciate.
Likewise. I mean, you've been the same with myself. But as I understand it, you're a father. So I was just curious if your children, I don't know how old they are or anything, but if they're old enough to know that you fight and to know what it is, or if they watch you, or if you let them, or like what the situation is with that, because I think that's something a lot of people wouldn't necessarily touch on, but it's be cool to find out more about.
Yeah, well, I have two sons. One son is blood. He's 8 years old. He's from 8 years old, and then I have a stepson. He's 8 as well, and they both know. They're at my fights. They understand what's going on, and they do kids fighting class as well, so they know how to defend themselves. Yeah, they know the deal, and they again, I explain to them. I explain it to like I explained to an 8 year old. How I've explained to them how um what am I trying to get out of this? Am I just going in there to hurt people, or I mean, what's the deal? Why are you doing this? And I explain it to them, and I let them know, we're not bullies. Even while you're doing this, we're not bullies. We bullying. I look at it as down. We don't bully anybody, but we are not gonna sit around and let no one, just bully us. We know how to defend ourselves. So that but they know the deal, and they enjoy it. They love it, but you know,
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's one of those
yeah,
things where I think, with personal opinion, and obviously it is just my opinion, it's not for everybody, but I think that type of thing is good for children growing up,
yeah,
to learn to defend themselves, and to learn to trust in their own abilities to a degree. In other words, obviously, when you get in there at a young age, especially, you sort of find out that it doesn't hurt that much. It's not as bad as you thought it was.
right,
You're not made of glass or whatever. But also the fact that you can, if you put your mind to something, you can obviously learn to do it, and learn to do it well.
yes,
So you sort of learn that self-confidence and that self-belief that then you can take to anything else as you get older. And I personally, I'm all for it. I mean, I'm not even a fighter or anything, but I was in martial arts classes and things from a young age, and it does people a world of good, I think. But that's
yeah,
cool. That's very, very cool. Yeah, especially explaining that the ethos behind it is very important. The meaning
yeah,
behind the type of thing. Okay, now we were going through some fight stuff earlier, and around the time of best submission, best KO, I forgot to ask you, about toughest fights. So I'm just going to go back and ask that one, and then we'll start moving forward with some other things. You mentioned your proudest moments. You mentioned your, best KO or your best finish and different things. Fights that are the toughest, just a precursor to this, obviously, it's not always the hardest hitter. Sometimes it can be like the most technically skilled person. It can be something that's happening outside of the cage, where something's going on in life, and obviously you have to sort of focus through that. Tough, obviously, as you know all too well, it takes many forms. But basically, what comes to mind for that for you? I think you muted yourself. There we are. You're back. Yeah. What comes to mind for you for the toughest fights in any way, really?
The toughest fight would be the one that I said earlier, the Jonathan Petty fight.
Yeah.
It's just a tough fight. It was just, nothing was going on in my personal life or anything. It was just a tough fight, man. It was, it's to have somebody across from you willing to go the length that you're willing to go, which is, hey, might got to carry me out of here in a stretcher, and that's fine, and it was beautiful. Do I want every fight like that? Absolutely not. I won't have a long career, but that, that was the toughest fight and the most enjoyable fight. And shout out to Jonathan Petty too. He's a good guy. He's a real good guy, and yeah, much respect to him.
Absolutely, yeah. Much respect to him and to anyone who gets in the cage as well. I thought it might be that one, but it's worth asking because, as I mentioned at the beginning, sometimes you get an answer you don't expect, so it's always worth asking. So moving into the tail end of this, very shortly we will look to the future as well and talk more about your future plans and your future dreams. But before we get there, last couple of things to touch on. I'd like to take this opportunity now to get your advice for um, people who are up and coming, people who have, well, really, you don't have to be up and coming. I mean, it's anybody who has a big dream and a big goal. Obviously, this is always a great question for the youth as well. I mean, you're quite young anyway, but I mean, people who are just starting out and everything. But also, it doesn't have to be sports related. It can be like, the lessons you've learned along the way that you would like to share. If someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, man, I got a big dream to do X, Y, and Z, whatever it is," what would you say to those individuals out there who want to achieve something in life?
Um, I, that's a good question. One thing I would say is first thing, go into it like you're a white belt. Even if you've wrestled for a long time or whatever, boxed for a long time, go in with a white belt, meaning don't think you know it all, because you don't. And this sport is constantly evolving, constantly. You see a new champion in a UFC or Bellator every other month.
Hold on, I think you've yeah, it's muted itself.
It's constantly evolving. So never think you know it all, because and I'm one of those guys. Like my experience, even guys that have maybe been training less than I have, and they show something that maybe that could add to my game. Who am I? Why would I not listen? Okay. And then other guys, hey man, I see this one thing um, that I think that can help you with your game. And that's one thing that never think you know it all. Another thing is consistency is very key. Consistency, whether you on a losing streak, you on a winning streak, always have that mindset. You can get better. One thing, like a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Mayweather, but one thing I really like about Floyd Mayweather is even when he had millions and millions of dollars, he always trained like he didn't have a dollar in his pocket. Even though he was the richest fighter, he could have his kids were taken care of. He could have retired a long time ago when he was fighting. But he always had that mindset. I'm broke. I'm poor. I remember where I came from. I don't want to go back there. And that's hard to do. That's hard. I don't even say myself, if I got 20, $30 million, I don't know if I'm still gonna be fighting. I'm not gonna lie to you. But but I would say consistency. You gotta and staying humble. And lastly, I guess the only thing I would add is your circle is important. The people that you have around you is important. People in the gym, but not only people in the gym, just your everyday life. Every day you can get caught up, from I've seen it so many times here in Arkansas, or me growing up, and not just in MMA, but in life in general. Me growing up, I've seen guys that could have made it in the NFL, could have made it in the NBA, could have been whatever, and for whatever reason, they didn't, and a lot of times you take a step back and look back and look at their circle, the people that they had around them, they hindered them instead of benefiting them or helping them. And I heard this the other day. They pulled them instead of pushed them. Someone's pulling you back instead of pushing you, helping you going forward. So I would say that. And then trust in God, man. There's gonna be times in this career, and a lot of us don't speak on that, and I don't even until people that are really close to me. So, but I will say, there's times that I've doubted myself in my career. There's times I'm like, man, I'm about to hang this up. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be authentic with you. There's times where it's gotten hard, but trusting in a higher power. Praying to God, talking to God, helping you get through this tough time, or this tough moment, or whatever you're dealing with. God is there for you. If you truly believe it, He's there for you. You just gotta. And again, I don't care. I don't care what you believe. You're Muslim, Christian, whatever, or spiritual like myself. God is there for you. So that's that advice I would give to the up and comers or any fighter really.
Well, there's some brilliant advice in there. I love it when that happens because I knew it would be a good answer, but it's like a really, really good answer. That's come from you there because it's a big question. I'm aware when I ask that it's a big sort of question. It's a lot to think about. But then with your career, and not just with your career, but with your life in general, from the highs and the lows and all the different things, you've learned a lot, and from other people you surround yourself with. So very, very powerful lessons, golden nuggets of wisdom, just like I promised at the beginning in that intro. So moving into the last couple of things, pretty much the last couple of things. Obviously, I'd like to touch on what it means to you to represent your home state as well on a big stage. I think that's important to give a mention to. And after that, we pretty much look to the future, and then we'll wrap it up after that. But first of all, what does it mean to you to represent your state, your area, however you look at it, your hometown, whatever. Um, you have a fight coming up there, so I suppose this naturally will lead into that anyway. But yeah, what does it mean to you, basically? I mean, that's the question.
I mean, like I said before, Hot Springs, Arkansas is where I'm from, and this is my home. I love it here. A lot of people complain about there's not much to do and all this and that, man. I'm an introverted guy anyway, so I don't need to be out partying every day. I like to train, spend time with my family and by myself. There's a lot of nature here. But anyway, I'm getting off track. It's cool. It's cool to be able to represent a state, but more than anything, not to knock where I'm from. But I'm more to represent who I am. That's and I feel Bruce Lee, I believe, said this: when you're fighting, that's way for you to what did he say? I can't think of what he said. I don't want to misquote him, but I represent myself. It's what I like, and I happen to be from Hot Springs, Arkansas, so indirectly, I'm repping them. I'm shouting them out everywhere I go. But yeah, and as far like you said about the future, the goal is to make it to the UFC, and to the top, and when I'm up there on that stage, thank you to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Couldn't have done it without you. That's where I'm from. So
Yeah,
to answer that question.
it answers that question brilliantly. It really does. And obviously, yeah, I mean, the future is really the last phase, or we'll do the future, then we'll do a quick mention to your fans at the end as well. But yeah, in terms of the future, you have a fight coming up in your hometown, I believe,
Yeah.
very soon at the time of this interview. It's about a week away. Obviously, some people will be watching this after that time, but at the time of this interview, it is coming up very quick. So yeah, share with us a little bit about that fight specifically, and also about your dream further forward in time as well. Obviously, you don't want to look past any fight, but you've also been very open about wanting to be in the UFC, wanting to be at this high level. So let's start with this upcoming fight in about a week, or roughly with week 8 days or whatever it is at that time, and then talk about the future going forward from there, please.
Yes, sir. My next fight is December 10th here actually in Hot Springs, Arkansas, my hometown, which is beautiful. I can count on one hand how many times I've fought here. So it's always it's the energy is crazy when I'm fighting here in Hot Springs, and I'm fighting against Tim Holly, 8-4 guy, tough guy, tough opponent, but I trust in my preparation. I'm ready to go out there and do what I do best. And that promotion is Real Deal Promotions, which is actually my coach, Dewan Pickney. He just started this promotion. This is the third one. It's a very up and coming promotion in Arkansas. The last this event as well. It's going to be sold out. So we sold out all three of these events. So I'm ready for it. Much respect to Tim Holly, like you said. I respect anyone that gets in the cage. No, nothing personal, but I have a job to do, and he's in the way. So I wish you the best after the fact. I wish you the best now, but again, you're in the way of what I'm trying to do. So.
Mm-hmm. And then going past that into, because I believe you get the win, as we've said, your preparation is second to none and everything. So that's all looking good. In terms of like moving beyond that point and your dream, I mean, you've mentioned the UFC a few times. You've mentioned like, I think you did touch on Bellator earlier and the fact you fought there once and everything. But it's just like what your dream is in an ideal world. We've sort of talked about this through the interview that you're representing yourself and you represent your home state. You want to look after your family. There's all different motivations in there. But at the end of the day, where do you want to be in the next, however long, the next, I don't know, next couple of years or whatever time scale you give that really?
I don't have a time limit. I used to focus a lot on the destination. Now I'm just enjoying the journey. But I do have goals and things like that I want to reach to. Just I don't have a set time, but I would like to be. I'm going to be a champion, whether it's in Bellator or UFC, one of these big promotions. I'm going to be a champion. Yeah, I want to, and ultimate goal, and I've told this to people, his ultimate goal would be like to be able to just one day wake up, look at my son and say, hey, want to go to Disneyland? Or, hey, you want to go out of the country for a week, or something for a month and just leave, go on a private jet or something. Not to, I'm not a materialistic person, but just to be able to make memories and things like that, So that's my ultimate goal. And I trust God that will get me there as long as I'm doing everything on my end. I feel like God to get me there. So I leave it in God's hands.
Absolutely, yeah. Another very valuable lesson there about enjoying the process. That's a big one. A lot of top champions have said that to me, and it's very much. It seems to be a bit of a staple of like the people who do well. I mean, they actually end up winning more and doing better by enjoying the journey step by step than when
Yeah.
every fight's a big deal type of thing. So, I mean, obviously it is a big deal, but you know what I mean. It's like just
Yeah.
enjoying getting better step by step.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Well, I mean, yeah, I totally get the whole freedom thing as well, like the dream being basically a type of freedom to live life more on your own terms, if you like, as
Right.
I mentioned at the beginning. Totally very cool. And yeah, I believe you'll get there, man. Just keep grinding and keep doing what you're doing. And
Yes, sir.
you will. Last question then, because we're coming up on an hour, which is very cool because there's some brilliant content in here.
Yeah.
But obviously, any longer than that, and people's attention spans will start to wander.
Right.
So the last question is just basically shout outs for people. Now you've mentioned people through this talk. You've mentioned coaches. You've mentioned certain people have helped you. But really, this is just, I like to give this opportunity because there's a lot of people behind the scenes doing good work. So, first of all, it's a shout out to anyone you'd like to mention in your life. But also, it's like a shout out to anyone who supports you in any way that's like more distant type of thing, even if it's messages on social media or people trying to encourage you or whatever, just a shout out to positive people in whatever form they might appear
Mhm.
in, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, give glory to God. Thank you to God. Without God, none of this would be possible. Um, I want to thank us in no particular order. I want to thank, I already brought them two up already, is Coach Dewan Pickney and Coach Bob Edmonds. They were there for me when I was 0-2. They were with me when I was 2-0. They was with me at all times. They're still with me today. And that means something when you're down. Who's beside you? You look around and say, who's beside you? So I appreciate them. I love them to death. I do anything in the world for them. I think my brother specifically, because when right after football, I asked him, I'm like, I don't know what to do, man. I'm thinking about MMA. What do you think? He said, man, you got the kind of mindset you determined. As long as you're determined, like you always are, I feel like you could be a champion. You know, so I think I remember that conversation. I was down, and my brother said, "Hey, do it. Why not? I got nothing to lose." Um, Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Don't
Uh,
worry.
Thankful to my son. Even though he doesn't know it, that's the best thing to happen to me. He motivates me every day to continue to go on, whether he only had to say anything, just him, his presence, knowing that, hey, he depends on me. You know, same with my stepson. I look at him, hey, he depends on me. So they don't even have to say a word. But even though they do motivate me. You got this, Dad. You know, and all that. That's beautiful. I love that. Uh, Thankful to my mom. I think I get my strength and all that from my mom. I've seen her, you know, work 3 jobs at times, you know, to provide for me and my brother. I love her to death. And, you know, my ultimate goal is to be able to look at my mom one day and say, Mom, you don't have to work anymore. Sit down, chill, relax, take care of you. Don't worry about nothing. You know, that's another reason. That's another thing that motivates me. So I'm thankful to my amazing, beautiful mother. Thank you to my woman, my girlfriend. I've been with for 1.5 years now, Jessica. I love you, girl. You'll see this. I love you. You know all that you do for me. You know, you're my peace. These times when I'm down, you help bring me up. When I'm up, you bring me even more up. You know, so I appreciate you. And just thank you to everyone. I has too many to thank. I thank to my teammates. Shout them out because without them, I wouldn't be the fighter I am today. Um, and I hope I give them the same work and the same push that they give me. Uh, Thank you to everyone else that has encouraged me along the way. Um, Past sponsors I have now. Even if you just sent me a message or a comment, or you just see me in passing, Chauncey, I see what you're doing. You know, I appreciate that. That means more than you guys know. Because again, like I said, this is a constant mental battle. You know, it's not easy just because I know all people see is this when your hand is raised. They don't see everything that goes into it. And it's a lot of times when, man, it's hard. It's extremely hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's probably one of the hardest things in the world. But those encouraging comments and messages and things just give me more fuel to continue to push on. And lastly, man, I'd like to thank you. It's a cool interview. Yeah, you're a good guy, man. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're very welcome. I really appreciate the kind words, though, and I really appreciate you being an open book and sharing everything that you shared during this process. Also, in terms of the setup and little things like preparing a Zoom and testing it and things that probably don't seem anything to you, but they mean a lot to me because there's been that mutual respect to make this happen. And obviously, I hope this interview, first of all, I hope it helps you and what you're doing, raises a little bit more awareness, whatever. But I also hope that this shares the message of hope and inspiration and how anything is possible if you believe in it enough and if you have the right mindset towards going and getting it. Basically, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but in simple terms, um, you've done it, you are doing it as a process, and it shows other people they can too, regardless of where you start from. So there's a lot of great things like that, and that's really my message um, for everybody watching this. So yeah, I mean, the last thing for me to do, champ, is to say thank you for your time again. Thank you for taking sort of a good hour out of your morning to talk with me, and it's been awesome. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have as well.
I have to, man. I enjoyed it. I truly did. And thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome again. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.